I would say probably the mountain climber, which is where you're dealing with this with things that come at you. You've got to be resilient, plan your route the best way up the mountain and just keep going, whether you want to or not. I'm motivated to do it, and I just keep pushing ahead. That's where I want to be. And if I fail, I fail. I'm okay with that. I mean, wouldn't be the first time I've ever failed. Probably won't be the last time. And I'm just going to keep pushing and do what I need to do and keep climbing that mountain one way or the other.
Hi, Bob. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well. Um, so, without further ado, I guess, what story did you want to share?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
What story did you want to share?
We're going to talk about essentially, recovering from 2 heart attacks and a bypass, and what the steps that I use even to this day to just keep moving forward. And that's really what it comes down to is we all have challenges and you got to keep moving forward. And right
I,
now, my challenge is the dog is
by the way, you introduced me into your dog. What's your dog's name?
the dog is Caroline. She is a miniature pinscher Chihuahua mix. So one of those dogs that thinks she's 8 foot tall and bulletproof. Caroline, go. There we go. And of course, you already met Macy the cat, who is my trusty companion in my office a lot of times, or in some cases, my supervisor gives me dirty looks like, okay, we're off, get back to work, you know.
Bring
So,
back memories.
you know how that goes. And even though I work for myself, I feel like I'm working for other people. You know how it is.
Oh my goodness. As you're saying.
Essentially, just that I think it's important for people to realize that, we have things that come up that we're not prepared for, and we've just got to push through them. Unfortunately, that's a part of life. I know for me, at 46 years of age, when I had my first heart attack, that was the last thing on my mind. It wasn't even, it wasn't even on my radar in any way, shape, or form, to the point that when I went into the ER and once they did check my blood pressure, the nurses attacked me at that point. They were like, take this. And they started, checking other things. And they were getting ready to set up for the night flight because they were going to fly me over to the heart hospital in Norfolk, Virginia. And
When was this, Bob? Pardon me. When was this?
This was in 2018. And I stopped everything, and I was like, and I looked at the doctor, and I'm like, am I seriously having a heart attack? And he just kind of looked at me, and he was like, yes, Mr. Thompson, you're having a heart attack. I was like, oh, okay. But it didn't register at first for whatever reason.
My gosh, yeah. I had a stroke in April 2020, and so were you still working at home at the time?
No, we were actually, it was my girlfriend and I at the time were on my way back from my father's house, which is about an hour and a half drive home. And I was driving, and for the better part of an hour,
You were driving.
I was driving. Yeah. My left arm was hurting. It hurt and it was numb. And my girlfriend Dana was like, okay, well, you need to go to the ER. You need to go to the ER. And she kept pushing me to go to the ER. And I finally, because I'm a hardhead, I finally listened to her and we pulled over. She took over driving. We went to the ER in Suffolk. And I really, walking in there, was like, okay, well, my blood pressure is probably high. They're going to put me on some meds, send me home. End of discussion. Not a big deal. And that was clearly not the case, because they were like, nope, you are having a heart attack. Heart attacks, to me, both of the heart attacks that I had are nothing like what you see on TV. There is no, at least in my case, there is no clutching the chest and rolling over, or the classic, Sanford and Son, I'm coming to see you, Elizabeth type of thing. It wasn't that at all. It was a totally different experience, at least for me anyway.
Mm-hmm. And so then, well, obviously you made it through, but then, how many? This is 2018, and how many rehabs did you go to?
Well, I had the first heart attack. They put some stents in, and then, of course, I was monitored. And then October 13th, that night, which is the same day as my birthday, we had gone out to dinner with some friends to celebrate my birthday. And I had another heart attack in the course of the middle of the night that night. And then the next morning, and again, that's a little bit of I didn't do a very good job explaining to Dana what was going on at the time. And
Mm-hmm.
what I should have told her is that I felt like I was drowning. And if I had said that, she would have known the signs and we'd have gone to the hospital earlier. But
I can relate. I can relate. Yeah, I can relate. Yeah.
yeah, and I didn't really explain it that well. So that next morning we went to the hospital, and that's when at that point they were like, Mr. Thompson, you had a heart attack last night, and the stents are not working. We are going to go in and do a bypass. And originally what was supposed to be a double bypass turned into a quadruple bypass. They could not take the artery out of my legs, which is typically how they do that. So they had to take it out of my arm, and then my arm ended up getting infected after the fact.
Mm-hmm. So remind me again. So the bypass, is that open heart?
Oh yeah, that's a quadruple bypass. They split you open. They take
Uh,
literally remove your heart from your body, do the work that they need to do, and then stick your heart back in and essentially, you know, staple you back up. They don't really sew you up anymore.
so then this was when was you mentioned this already? Pardon me again. So when was the second one?
Second one was in October of 2018.
Okay. So then how long were you in the hospital?
I
I
was in
mean,
the
yeah.
I
Go
was in the
ahead.
hospital for 3 weeks essentially. The first week was there just to get me ready because they had put me on some blood thinners and I had to come off of that, of course. Obviously, before you're having major surgery, blood thinners is not a good idea. So
Mm-hmm.
I was probably in the hospital a total of 3 weeks. Then I went to my father's and did 3 weeks of rehab at dad's house in terms of using my the breath machine to work on my breathing, starting
Mm-hmm.
to take some small walks. Basically,
Mm-hmm.
they obviously my father's retired, so they needed to have somebody there. Him and his wife were there to make sure that I ate properly or that I could, they were going to make sure that I was fed, uh, make sure that I didn't fall over. Quite honestly, make sure that I could take a shower without needing any assistance, which luckily I was able to get through on my own because nobody wants to be 46, 47 years of age and have to call their dad into the shower to help them, So things like that, just to make sure that I was well taken care of before I could essentially move back into my own place again.
I mean, yeah, I can relate. We talked about this offline, but I can relate. So when you were in the hospital, what were you thinking? Did you? I mean, when I was hospitalized, this was during COVID, so I had a lot of time to think. So this was this was a lockdown, and well, but regardless, when you're like that, when you're in that situation, you have a lot of time to reflect. Um, for me, it was reflecting on my whole lifestyle. Like what led me to this, among other things. But that was the biggest thing, like reflecting on my lifestyle, and being grateful for like you. I had to lean on family a lot, even to this day. So what did you reflect on?
I think for me, honestly, I was ready to get it done. Like once I knew what was going on and I knew what they were going to do, I was pretty much just let's just get it done. I was ready to get to rehab and do what I needed to do. Obviously, um, that was really it. At that point, it was just okay. Let's focus up. Let's get this done and move on to the next thing. I'm ready to move forward. Tell me what I got to do to get through this. I'm raring to go. Let's get through rehab. Let's get back to work. Let's handle business. That was pretty much my attitude.
Same, yeah. The determination, yeah, the determination. I absolutely can relate to that as well. Um, let's see what else. Was there any so so tell me about your journey in rehab.
I mean, my journey in rehab, it is what it is. I mean, I think what, again, I had the attitude of, okay, well, this is what I've got to do, so I'm going to do it. And that's what I did. Now, over the years since, I haven't always been great on my food choices, and I'm getting better in that regards. But in terms of doing the actual rehab, I was fine with it. I was focused up, and I knew the sooner that I got better, the sooner I could get back to work, which, again, as a real estate agent, you work for yourself. You don't work, you don't get paid. So I wanted to get back to work, and I love what I do, and that was important to me. So it was just a matter of, putting my head down and doing what needed to be done. So like at my father's, my dad lives out in the country essentially. So about 3 or 4 times a day, I would take a little walk, and I would walk out the door and then walk down the driveway, which is a fairly long, country driveway, and then work my way back up and just take my time with that. And that was kind of my routine. So I just got in the habit of doing that because I knew walking, I knew using my little breath control spectrometer thing. I knew those were the two things that I had to do, I needed to do to get myself back to where, okay, in 3 weeks, I can move back home to my own place. And then I can hopefully start making phone calls and start getting back into what I do, for a job, for a living.
The routine resonates a lot with me. It took me about a good month to because I had a little list of things because I think that I picked up from my therapist about what to do, and yeah, I started doing that routine. So that means a lot to me when you're talking about the routine. Do you still keep a routine to this day?
I mean, I keep the routine of, obviously, I take better care of myself than I did before. I'm still, and that's always a struggle and always a work in progress. Over the last 4 or 5 months, I've cut out a lot of the junk food and the crap food that I was eating. I've lost about 20 pounds because I put some weight back on when I broke my leg in 2022. I think the biggest thing for me is just, if I'm having a bad health day, just acknowledge it, but yet at the same time, try to keep moving forward. And I think it's that, what I learned a lot from was that I started to teach and mentor young agents. And then that kind of got me into the realm of mentoring and motivational speaking and things of that nature. And that's really what inspired it, because I kind of wanted to start giving back a little bit. And just, my whole point of doing the podcast and doing other podcasts is, as you and I spoke offline, is I think it's, if somebody gets one nugget out of what I'm doing, then that's a good thing. Even if it's a nugget of, hey, Bob was an idiot, don't be like Bob. I'm okay with that. I was a smoker for quite a while, and that definitely led to, some of my poor choices that I was making in regards to my health. And again, sitting back at 46 going, well, this is not going to happen to me. Like, I knew I needed to quit smoking, but I also thought I had more time. I knew I needed to eat better, thought I had more time, and I was clearly wrong. So if somebody can learn from that and go, okay, well, I'm late 30s, early 40s, maybe it's time for me to quit smoking and make some changes to my life, because I would like to be around long term. If anybody can learn from my stupidity, I'm quite happy with that.
Um, so we mentioned you love the pets. Have you been a pet owner before this happened, Bob? Or
Oh yeah. I had pets growing up, and you can hear Caroline in the background barking at the neighbor, because that's what little dogs like to do. It's only little dogs. It's a fascinating thing. Big dogs are content, and they know they're a big dog, where little dogs always have to act like they're in charge. It's a funny thing.
um, actually, I myself want to get a golden. It's I mean, it's I had a Doberman growing up, but that doesn't work out. But are dogs a lot of work, Bob?
For the most part, I mean, Carolyn's not too bad. Carolyn's biggest problem is that she likes to bite when people come to the house, so you have to get her used to
Oh,
it. But again,
what
she's
is she
a
again? What is she?
Huh?
What is she again?
She is a Chihuahua miniature pinscher. So she can't be more than about 20 pounds. And again,
Oh,
she runs the show. So when you bring in new people into the house, it takes a little bit for her to get used to them. But, we've gotten used to that. It is what it is.
and how about the cat? What is she?
The cat is a cat is a cat. Um, for the most part, easy to deal with. I'm a cat. I grew up with cats, so I'm essentially more of a cat person than a dog person. Always have been. I had a cat named Vandal that lived to be 18, and that was my pride and joy. I love that cat to death, and I was very sad when he passed away. But yeah, I've always been a cat person, so I'm perfectly content either way.
Um, Question about the. I mean, you got them. You got them when they were young.
My girlfriend did. My girlfriend. We've been together about 5 years. So she had the animals. It was a package deal, essentially. Those kids and animals and all that.
They've always. I mean, because I've seen these. They seem to be getting. They seem to get along, right?
Oh yeah, they get along fine. They've been around
Oh.
since day one together, so they get along fine. Every once in a while, Caroline will get a little attitude, and Macy will smack her upside the head to keep her straight. But typical dog and cat stuff.
Hmm. Okay, so you mentioned that you do coaching. How often do you coaching?
Not as often as I would like. That's starting to build and grow. What I'm really focusing on is more the public speaking aspect than anything else. I was able to give a speech at Regent University in Norfolk, Virginia. Um, and I enjoyed that a lot, talking to the young people and just talking about, there are things that they can accomplish and do. I think a lot of young people sometimes, and I hate to sound like a grumpy old man, have a problem with talking to other people and not necessarily on the phone or through the phone. And I think it's important that they have the one-on-one conversations with people, because you never know where things are going to take you, and it's important. And I'll give you a quick example of that. I've got a friend of mine that runs Miami Web Fest, and I was there in 2021 helping him with that. We
Mm.
had about probably 9 or 10 interns that were helping us out with different events and different things. And one of the things that we pointed out was, if you wanted to meet anybody, please let us know. We'll introduce you. So we're in Miami, Florida. This is essentially, movies and TV. This is the cream of the crop in Miami, Florida. So
Hmm.
we had a pre-show event, and probably 4 or 5 of the interns were sitting there on their phones or talking to each other. And I'm going, guys, this is an opportunity for you. You need to be talking to other people. That phone's not going to help you any. Talking
Hmm.
to your other fellow intern is not going to help you any. I got to speak to a woman that was on the Cuban boat lift in 1980. Fascinating story. She did a documentary on, why her and her father were political prisoners and why they had to
Mm.
come to America and all of this, what it was like as a child for her to be on the boat lift. I could have talked to her all night long. And I never would have got a chance to speak to her if I hadn't have been there at that very moment, at that very space and time, and walked up and said, "Hello, I hope you're having a good evening. Do you need anything?" And I'll never forget that. There's no other way in this world that ever would have happened. So those are the type of things I think people need to take advantage of. And you have to reach out and talk to people, because you may learn a whole other world of existence that you may not have known about, or there you may, get a Jeep and a great and genuine connection with somebody that otherwise you wouldn't have had.
That resonates a lot with me too, Bob. Like um there's countless times in my life where I've also experienced that. Um, so you mentioned that you said you don't do it as often as you'd like to. Um, and then you started doing these podcasts, and so what going back to the trauma. How had you how have you how have you grown? Would you say from the trauma?
I would say I've grown from the perspective of that. You know, I understand that life is short and can be taken away from you at a moment's notice. So that's probably a big portion of it. The other portion of that is I've always been one of those people that's pretty much always said what's on my mind.
Hmm.
And now it is, but that was only within maybe my circle of friends or my circle of people. And now I've expanded that. And I do that in podcasts. I do that with my coaching. I do that with my real estate, with the new course that I've got coming out. You know, at this point, love me or hate me, I don't really care. I'm almost, you know, I'm 51 years of age. There's about 10 to 15 people whose opinions I really care about. And I'm going to say what's on my mind. And if you don't like it, I'm okay with that. It doesn't hurt my feelings at all. I'm okay with saying these are the mistakes that I've made, learn from them. You know, take one nugget from my stupidity and run with it. I'm okay with that. And, you know, and that's pretty much what I'm about. And what I'm doing is these are the mistakes I made. This is how I'm trying to correct them. This is how I think I can help you not make those same mistakes. And talking about, you know, persistent progress and self checks and things of that nature. And even talking about a lot about imposter syndrome, to where it's still awkward and weird for me to talk about things that I know about, because you always kind of feel like in the back of your head, are you the best person to be talking about them? But at the end of the day, I'm going to do it anyway. And again, if somebody doesn't like what I have to say, I'm okay with that. It's not going to affect my life either way.
So I'd like to get into the metaphor aspects of the pod. I gave you a bunch of lists, but how would you example? I mean, so I have a. I don't know if you can see this. I have a. I don't think you can see this. I have a phoenix tattoo. So that's how that's how I would characterize myself as a phoenix. How would you, if you had to, what metaphor would you choose for yourself?
I would say probably the mountain climber, which is where you're dealing with this, with things that come at you. You've got to be resilient, you know, plan your route the best way up the mountain and just keep going, whether you want to or not. I'm motivated to do it, and I just keep pushing ahead. That's where I want to be. And if I fail, I fail. I'm okay with that. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time I've ever failed. Probably won't be the last time. And I'm just going to keep pushing and do what I need to do and keep climbing that mountain one way or the other.
I love that. It's great to meet you, Bob. And I'll share. Just send me. I'll share all the stuff that you mentioned about your course. And thanks for being with me, and for sharing your story. I appreciate it. Thank you, Bob.
I'm always here to help. If you need anything, please let me know. And like I said, I'm here to help. I'm always around. No worries.
Take care, bro.